Hey guys, this is a video about the real fundamental power of Rapid Composer, and I've been trying to wrap my head around this and explain it to myself and to to you all for a long time, and frankly I've kind of miserably failed. I made one video about chord note relative phrases and things like that, but it just didn't get to the heart of what's really going on here. But I finally came on to something, and I think this is going to kind of shed light on it. So I've got a phrase here, uh, and it's just a single 4-bar phrase, and I've called it, if you look up here, Ionian phrase chord relative. So this is a chord relative phrase. Let me play it for you. One more time. Okay, now I want you to look at up this section up here called the master track, and what you see is that every, let's say, every half bar, every 2 quarter notes, the harmony changes. So we start out for 2 quarter notes, we've got a C, and then we've got a G, C, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's our master track with our harmony, and our phrase sits below that. Now, here's where the magic happens. If I go to the phrase editor, let me go back. If I double click this phrase, it'll take me to the phrase editor. Now, I want you to hear the phrase in the phrase editor. Okay, so it's pretty repetitive, because if you look here at the notes, see if I can make these any bigger. No. If you look here at the notes, you'll see they're only 3 different notes. We've got the C, the E, and the G, and then there's a C5 up here. So we've got some different octaves, but it's only 3 notes. So naturally, over the course of 4 bars, it's going to sound a little generic. Play it one more time. Okay, so boring. Uh, Now, if you notice, all these notes are chord relative. They've got the ampersand, and these numbers stand for the chord degree. So in a C major chord, in C Ionian or C major, a 1 major chord, the first note is a C, the second note is an E, and the third note is a G. Okay? Uh, I'm not going to go heavily into the chord mapping scheme, because I don't want to lose sight of the forest for the trees. But suffice to say that they're just 3 notes. So if I go back to the composition window and I play the exact same phrase, in other words, this phrase that appears in the phrase editor window is exactly the same phrase that we've got sitting in our composition window. So let me play this one more time. Okay, so that's a far more interesting melody. So how is it that, we've just got 3 notes in the phrase editor, and then the same phrase in the composition window sounds, we've got other notes? Well, that's the key to this chord relative mapping scheme, that the notes are going to change depending on the changes in harmony. So if I made the master track all the key of C, it would sound exactly like what we hear in the phrase editor. But because the master track is changing chords every 2 beats, we have a much more interesting melody. So, looking at the taking a view, understanding that, you get an inkling into the power of this chord note relative mapping scheme. So, in other words, you can have a very simple, let's call this an arpeggio type of phrase, right? You can have a very simple arpeggio phrase, at least simple in the terms of the number of notes that are being used, different notes. But when you take that phrase and you put it over different harmonies, you end up with some really interesting music. And that is the key to Rapid Composer. And I've tried all the other, MIDI plugins, all the MIDI VSTs. I own Captain Chords and I own Orb, and I've tried all the others. And there's none of them approach the power of Rapid Composer. They're kind of built on the same principle, and they're great programs. I think Captain Chords is awesome. Um, but with Rapid Composer, you really can get under the hood, and you can do so much more. I can't even begin to tell you how deep this program is. This program, the best analogy I can give you is this program is the Adobe Photoshop of of this type of musical composition. Okay, and I've used Photoshop for a few years, and it's a very, if you know anything about Photoshop, I mean, it's a cottage industry. People learn, teaching and videos. It's gigantic. Uh, Rapid Composer has that potential. It absolutely has the potential to change musical composition, and I say that I challenge anyone to refute that. The trouble is, well, not the trouble, but the problem has been is that there's a very steep learning curve in this program, at least for me. And there's very little support. There's some really nice videos out there. If you search on YouTube, there's some good stuff, and there are a few people that really kind of understand how this thing works. But what would Adobe Photoshop be without all the lessons, Creative Live, and the literally thousands of hours of teaching that revolves around the Adobe Photoshop subculture. Okay, I mean, if everyone had to learn Photoshop from the ground up, it just wouldn't be happening. So that's there's two sides to software. I mean, there's the software and then there's the user community. And the more powerful the software, the more important the user community is to, teaching people how to use this very difficult stuff. And that's where Rapid Composer sits, undoubtedly. Um, so, it's my mission to try to change that a little bit, and that's why I'm talking to you today. So I wanted you to see, what this thing is largely about. And as you can see, you can take these very simple phrases, and they're so flexible. That's the power of this thing. And in a sense, I played around with a lot of phrases from Haydn piano sonatas, which, by the way, are absolutely drop dead gorgeous. They're kind of ignored these days, but man, Haydn he's right up there in the pantheon, top 5 without a doubt. Uh, but whatever your thing is, dance music, EDM, it doesn't matter. Uh, Rapid Composer doesn't care what kind of music you're into. It's got the power for you, trust me. Um, getting back to Haydn, so I was playing with his sonatas, and taking little snippets, 2 bar snippets, and things like that. And you can do the same thing. And a guy like Haydn, he didn't need Rapid Composer to to change the phrases based on the harmony. I mean, if you're good enough at the piano, you can do this on the fly. And in a sense, that's what a lot of jazz pianists do, right? They learn their riffs, and they can apply the riffs over, all kinds of, beautiful extended chords, and that's what it's all about for a jazz musician. And they do this off the cuff. It's improvisation, but they practice these phrases. The hands of a good jazz pianist, they know the shapes, they know the grips, they know the scales, and they can take these riffs or phrases, whatever you want to call them, and apply them over any harmony they want. That's what Rapid Composer is doing, right? Except in Rapid Composer, you've got what's called the master track. Um, so the last thing I'll leave you with, I'll just show you. It's kind of cool. Like if we select this, excuse me, we select this phrase, we can harmonize it instantly. Just go auto harmonize, okay? And it's just block chords. It's pretty simple. But listen to this now. Let me start again. Okay, so all that music, and I'm not saying it's the greatest, I'm not saying that you wouldn't want to tweak it, okay? But remember that all of that came from 3 notes, you know, 3 notes in the phrase editor. So that's my best plug for Rapid Composer. If this is the beginning point of Rapid Composer, and a lot there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot more. There are tons of more features. I haven't even scratched the surface, but if there's one feature that is going to draw you to this program, it's the fact that you can take very simple phrases and breathe incredible new life into them, because you can put them over any harmonies you want. Okay? So, happy trails, guys. Take care.